What we have here is the RouteOne menu. I've created a brand new installation of RouteOne straight by downloading from our FTP site and running our install routine. So what you're going to see now is exactly everything you need to do to be able to download data from the iSeries to a Wintel server using RouteOne. The first thing I need to do within the product is to give details of the target systems, i.e. the Wintel servers that I want to send data to. And I do that with option 31 on the menu, Target Systems. So if I go into option 31, what I need to do is provide details of the system and also the credentials to log on to that machine. So we've got a username which is UTI demo, then the details of the target systems, 192.168.10.75. That can be either the IP address or the DNS name of the target machine. And then the password to log on to that box. Once I've provided the credentials and the details, option 31, so just let me confirm that I've set that up correctly. So I do option 7, which does a test connection. You can see there it says UTI demo logged in. What that means is it's connected to that machine, passed the credentials test, and everything's now hunky-dory to go. You'll notice there that the messages are coming back from the Microsoft FTP service. It can be any FTP server you like running the target system. We just use Microsoft because it's not installed as part of Windows and it's very, very efficient. It's also worth noting that you don't need to have FTP running on your iSeries. RouteOne uses its own low-level sockets technology to download the data to the machine. So now I've created details of a target system, I'm ready to create a definition to tell the product what details I want to send down to that target system. The next thing I'm going to do is to add any tables, any files that I want to use into my RouteOne data dictionary and to define the database links, how we get from one file to another. It can be useful to do this up front because it makes it a lot easier to create your RouteOne definitions later, especially defining the file links externally, because it means once I define a link between any two tables, I never have to redefine the link on the fly when I'm using it. So to do that, the easiest way is to go into option 15 from the menu, and if I do F6 to add files, what I'm going to do is just say I want to add in all the files in the library I'm going to use. Now the library name of the demo is called BI demo. So I say libraries files *all and library BI demo. So you see it's pulled in there the details of all the files. If I put a 2 next to it, sorry 12 next to it, it will show me the details of all the fields on all the files. One advantage of having a data dictionary in RouteOne is that if I want to, I can change the field names of the that's come from the files. I can change the text, but I can create virtual fields as well. So if you're using the field over and over again, for instance, if you on a file and you always want to multiply one by the other to get the value, you can do that in the data dictionary. So the field would appear to the user in RouteOne as though it was on the table, even though it's not. So after I've defined my files to the data dictionary, I'm now going to define the links between all the files. So I'm going to start off from my sales file, which is called sales03, sales table in library BI demo. And the first thing I want to do from that is go to my customer master file, which is called customers01 in library BI demo. Now in RouteOne, to create the links, it will always tell you at the top of the screen the fields on the to file that you're going to link to. And all you need to do is specify the fields on the from file down the bottom. You can do this 3 ways. You can either just key the field names in if you know them. I can do F4 to prompt. So I can select the fields from there from the sales file to link to the customer file. Or what you'll normally do is you'll just see F9 best guess, and that will calculate the links for you between the files. It does that by looking for any syllables that are the same in the field text or any character in the same place in the field name, and it scores every field and decides which one it thinks is the best one for each instance of the link. So now I've got my link defined from sales03 to Customer Master forever. So whenever I use those 2 files again in that sequence in the definition, I won't have to define the links because the product will always look in the data dictionary first. A few more links I'm going to do just to make sure I've got them all defined. I'm going to go from my Customer Master file, which I've just linked to a file called Customer Class. This has got basically customer class details. Each customer has got a class code on it, and I'm going here to get the description so I can download it. Of course, it might help to put the right name in. It's cust01. So again, the easiest thing to do is just do F9 to best guess. And I'll go away and do it for me. I also want to go from my sales file, library BI demo 03, to my item master file, which is called item mast04. In BI demo. Spell it right. So again, I can just best guess it will find the item number and link on that field. Go to the file. Now from my item file, I've got an item class as well, which I want to use for my analysis. So I'm going to I say from item mast04 library BI demo. I want to go to a file called item class 05. Again in BI demo. Again, it's just F9 to best guess. You see, I'm creating all these links. It makes it very easy for myself later on. A couple more to do. I want to go from my item master file. We've also a sales family against an item, which is another thing we analyze our sales by. BI demo. So I'm going to go from my item master file to my item sales family file, which is called ITMSFAM06 in BI demo. Again, it's F9 to best guess. And the last one is I want to link to my sales personnel file. So on my my sales record, I've got the salesperson it belongs to. So I'm going to go from sales 03 to my file called sales PERS07 in BI demo. Again, it's F9 to best guess. So I've now defined the tables to my RouteOne data dictionary. I've defined the database link, so now I really am ready to go. Now I'm going to create a RouteOne definition which defines to the product the data that I want to take from my tables and send down to the target system. The concept of a definition runs throughout all the modules of our application. A definition is very similar to creating a query for 100 definition, i.e. define the tables, the fields, any sort fields, record selections, runtime parameters, anything you want to do in that arena. Let me just show you. So we're going to option 1, RouteOne definitions. I'm going to do F6 to create a definition, so I'm going to call this sales. And I'll call it sales download. Bit of text against it. In the definition, all I'm doing is telling the product the data to extract. I'm not telling it where I'm going to send it. I'm not saying what format I want it in. It's just a matter of sending the data to extract. So I'm going to use all these tables that I've had before. So I'm going to use sales 03, in BI demo. I'm going to go to my customer master file, which is in BI demo. I'll also go to my item master file, ITEMAST04 in BI demo. I'll go to my customer class file to get the, customer class file to get the class descriptions. I will go to my item class file, item class 05. I will go to my sales family file, ITMSFAM06 in BI demo. And I'll also go to my salesperson file to get the salesman's details, SLSBERS07 in library BI demo. So as I press enter now, what it's doing, A, is checking that all those tables are defined to the RouteOne data dictionary. But B, it's also checking that it knows the database links between them. So now creating my definition, the list of fields I want to send down to the target system is very, very easy indeed. All I need to do is and select the fields that I want. So from my sales file, all I'm going to do initially is just select all the fields. I'm going to show you how easy it is to resequence them in the definition. So in the output files it creates, I can put them in exactly the right sequence I want. But I'm just going to select customer number, item number. I'll have the year, I'll have the month. I'll have the quantity from my sales file, I'll have the value, I'll have the salesman's details, I'll have the invoice number. And what I'll do now is just press F9 to go to the next file. So from the item to the customer file, I will select the customer name and the customer class. F9 to go to the next file, which is the item master. From there, I want the item description. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about what order they're going to come in the list at the moment. I'll have the item class and I'll have the sales family, F9 again to get my customer class, so I'll select that. F9, and I've got to my item class, so from there I want the item class description. And F9 again for the last time, I think. Yes, next to last time for the sales family, I'll have the sales family description, and then I'll have the salesman description. So now I've got all the data that I want to download. Okay, because I'm going to download these and use the column headings as the column headings from my data dictionary as the column headings in the output file, I just need to make sure that they're all unique. So I'll call customer class description, item class, sales family, and my salesman. So if you're not happy with that, what I've got here is the sequence number. I can do F9 at any point in time to say I want to resequence my fields in sequence of 10. So after the customer number there, I want to go down and put my customer name, which is right, 1020. The next thing I want is my item number, because that makes more logical sense to me. So after the item number, I want the item description. Then I can have the customer class and the customer class description. Put 31. I can keep doing this and pressing enter and it'll resequence them for me. In fact, I'll have the year right at the very beginning, so I'll make that 1. I'll make the month 2. I've then got the item class, so I want the item class description coming after it, so that will be at sequence number 71. Sales family, so I want the sales family description after that, so sales family description will be 81. I think that's probably all I need to do now. Quantity value salesman. Now I'll just make the salesman name come right after the salesman, so I'll change that there to be 145. And that's happy, so I've defined the tables, I've defined the fields. This is the data I'm going to send down to my Wintel server. The only other thing I'm going to do in here, and I don't need to do it, is because this file is quite big, for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to define a runtime parameter. So when I run this definition, it's going to ask me for the values of the runtime parameters I want. A concept we use quite often, really. So I'm going to say for this download, I want to download just the sales for a particular month. And if I want to, I can put a default in there, so at runtime I can just accept it. So I'm going to say, I'm going to default to year 2015, month January. So at this point now, I've done all I need to do to define the definition. It's going to go away and save the definition for me, and it's going to generate me a program. In common with all our other modules, when you create a definition, it will generate you an ILE RPG program to handle the data extracts. After I've created the definition, the second part and final part of the solution is to create what we call a transfer request. This is where we tell RouteOne to run a particular definition and where to send it and what format we want it to be in. I do this by going to option 2 on the menu and then do F6 to create a new one. Now if I call my transfer request the same name as the definition that I've already defined, it makes it a little bit easier because all of a sudden it knows straight away which definition I'm going to run. So I'm saying here in my transfer request, I'm going to run a definition called sales, and I'm going to send it to UTI demo. I've only got one target system defined. It's assumed I'm going to send it there. Do I want my column headings to become my headings in the output file? Okay, so I can say no, or I want the text from the iSeries fields, or the field names, or I want both. Okay. It says here, do I want to keep the iSeries file? What that means is after it's built the data iSeries and it's successfully transferred it down to the Wintel server, do I want to keep the file on the iSeries or not? The advantage of keeping it there is that I can just resend it if I wish to do so. Obviously, it would take up some disk space. The next section here says retry if FTP fails. This can be quite useful because what this will do, it will check if you're sending data down to a remote system, and it could be quite a big file, it might take an hour to send because it's gigabytes and gigabytes of data. You can say if it gets to a certain part of the file and then the transfer fails for some reason, for a network problem, when I restart, just restart from that particular point. And I can also say try so many times and so many seconds. And down the bottom here, this is where I'm going to send it to. So what I'm going to send to a Windows machine, which I am, in which case, what do I want my output file name to be called? I'm going to call it sales. And the other key thing I need to specify is what file format I would like to send that data in. So I press F4 to select. I'll just show you what they all are. I can send them down as a CSV file, I can create a DB2 file, I can create a document, I can just send an email message, I can create an HTML page. If I'm sending data to another iSeries, I can send a library, I can send an Access database, I can write to MySQL, Oracle, PDF. I can just send a text message if I wish to do so. I can create a spool file, I can download to SQL Server, I can create a text file or Excel spreadsheets, or I can create XML. Okay, I'm going to do a very, very simple one to start with. I'm just going to download it to an Excel spreadsheet. So I just select X there. My ID will become different, will have a different purpose depending what file format I'm sending to. For a spreadsheet, it will become the worksheet name within the workbook. For any database, it will become the table name within the database, and the database will take its name from there. So I've now successfully created a transfer request. It might be worth noting at the top here, you can do some transfers with RouteOne that don't need a definition. For instance, I can take a complete spool file, send it down to a PDF document. Don't need a definition for that, because all I need to do is point it to a spool file. I can take a whole library and send it down to either another iSeries library, or I can send it to a save file, which I can save on the PC if I want to. I can run an existing FTP script, or if I've got a query definition already set up, which will satisfy my extract, I can just tell the transfer request to run the query definition, and it will write that to an output file in Qtemp, and then use that to send the data. But now I'm just going to do an XLS spreadsheet. So to run it, I can run it to just put a 7 next to it within the product. And then because I've got runtime parameters, it's asking me what parameters I want to use. So I'm going to use 2015 month 1. Press F8 to carry on. So now it's running the definition in the background, extracting the data, writing it to a work area on the iSeries, and then sending it down to the RouteOne client. Okay, I don't need to run it from within the product. Everything is completely command driven. So the RouteOne command here, I can just say which FTP request, which transfer request I want to run, where I want to send it to. I can override anything that I've created. So I can put this into my own applications, into my CL programs, into the menu. When I've sent the data down to my Wintel server, if I just open up my remote desktop session and open up my RouteOne, that is the part of RouteOne that sits on the target system and does the work. So you can see what's happened here is it's received a CSV file, and I've said I want to convert it to an Excel spreadsheet called sales, which is what it's done. To view the data, I can either navigate to the folder where it's put it. If I just click View Last File, that'll open up Excel, and this is the data that's downloaded from the iSeries. So you see I've got my year and the month, the fields are selected in my definition. Customer, the name, the item number, the description, customer class, all that type of stuff. Data downloaded very, very simply and very, very easily to an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, that was an example of sending it to an Excel spreadsheet. I can use the same definition to send it to any, or more or less any format that I want to do so. If I just change my transfer request there, I put the 2 next to it, go down here to where it says XLS. If, for example, I want to send it to Microsoft Access database, all I need to do is change that to MDB. And because I kept the file on the iSeries, remember when I created my transfer request, if I do option 11 here to send only, what that'll do, it'll just resend the data down to the RouteOne client and then reconvert it. So again, back to my RouteOne client over here. So you see it's received the data. This time it's created a file called sales.mdb, 14,400 rows. If I view the last file again, now it will open up Access, because that's the data format that I put the data into. Okay, so now I've got over here my table. Click on it to open it with Access. Exactly the same data, but this time in an Access. Oh no, it's an Access database. Yeah, it isn't it? Sorry, exactly the same data, but this time in an Access database. I just clear the window there. Go back to my iSeries session. What most people, well, a lot of our customers use is to download the data to a SQL server. Again, that's very, very easy. All I do is go down here, change that to SQL, and now it will download the data to the SQL server. Again, 11 to send only, resend the data, open my RouteOne client. See now it's reading the data, it's creating the DTS package to write the data into the SQL server, or a stored procedure, depending on what version of SQL server you have. So it says taken 14,406 rows and written them to my SQL server called demo server, written into my sales database, and again the data is done. To see the data that's been downloaded into this SQL server, I open up SQL management console, and I just go into databases over here. Oops. So it creates a database called sales because that's what my transfer request told it to do. So I just open up the sales database and then open up the tables, and there's one called DBO sales, which is the one it's just downloaded. If we go into the right one, if I right click it and say select the top 1000 rows, this will show me the data that's been put into the SQL server. So exactly the same data there in the SQL server. So you just see how easy it is to put the data into any format that you wish to do so very quickly and very easily. Okay, we've seen how to download data very quickly using RouteOne from database files. Now I'm going to go to a different routine we can use to extract data from spool files. And using this methodology, we can either take whole spool files and download them to PDF, or we can extract certain fields and certain amounts of data from within the spool file. And the example I'm going to use is going to create an electronic form, which is going to be a bookmaster invoice. If I just show you where I'm going to start from, if I start from an output queue called Q bookmast. On here we've got 3 bookmaster invoices, okay, one for Bertram Trading, one for Coots, and one for Bookspeed. These are actually real invoices from one of our customers, Booksource, up in Glasgow in Scotland. To extract the data from the spool file, I create a definition, very similar to creating one from database files that we've seen before. The difference is when I go into files, rather than listing the names of the tables I'm going to use, I put this keyword in here called star spool file. What that means is, but at runtime, I want the product to extract data from a spool file rather than from a database file. So I just press enter. Now when I'm designing this originally, I need to point the product towards an existing spool file which has got all the information on that I'm going to extract, so I've done that. And once the spool file data is pulled into the just specify where the fields are on the report. I can do this a couple of ways. I can actually specify different lines on the report by saying on line 7 is an invoice number line, and on line 9 is the date line, and then just define the fields that way. Or I can use this other methodology which I've done, which is star page. What this means is I'm going to specify all the fields all in one chunk all over the report. Now when I first start, these fields will all be in green. The fact that they're in blue means they've been selected already in the report for download. I put 2 next to the star page definition or the line ID layout. This is how I specify all the fields. I tell the product which line they're on, which position they're on, what field name I want to use within the RouteOne definition, and the length of the field. So you can see there I've downloaded a list of all the fields that are on my spool file report. When I've done that, it's a matter of just going back into my definition and telling the product which fields I want to download. Exactly the same as if they come from database files. When I've done that, it'll go away and submit a job to save the definition and to generate the program. Exactly the same as doing database files. Once I've done that, I create a transfer request to say take this data and put it down to the RouteOne client. So again, I've got the definition name there, what I want to create. You can use different file formats, methodologies for doing mail merge. You can do CSV, you can do XLS, or you can do Excel spreadsheets. They're all supported by Word mail merge, because Word is the mechanism that we use to create the electronic form on the PC. We create a template and we point the data at it to do a mail merge. I'll show you what I mean. If I do F11 here, Word options, this is where I'm specifying that I want this spool file to actually be converted to a Word document and then to a PDF document. So I'm going to take, I'll show you this in a second, in BS templates, merge it with my output file I've just created and create a PDF file called percentage invoice number. Now at runtime, percentage invoice number will be substituted by the actual invoice number from the spool file that I've created. So if I run it manually now, it will prompt me for a spool file, i.e. I can run it manually just for that one spool file. But the good news is you don't have to do that. Normally what you would do is use the RouteOne automatic spool file processing. And what this will do, this will monitor specific output queues on the iSeries, and whenever a spool file arrives on there, it will pick them up and check through the list of FTP requests, database transfer requests, and look for the right ones. Now it'll only pick up ones that have just become ready on the spool file, on the output queue. So to simulate that, what I'm doing is holding the spool files and releasing them. This is now exactly the same as if the spool files had just arrived on the output queue. So if we go to automatic processing, you'll see it's processed the first one, it's now processing the second one. For F5 again, I'm sure you'll find it's now processed the third one. So that should have extracted the data from those spool files and sent them down to the RouteOne client. So what we've done on the RouteOne server here, we've created a Word template using the standard Word product, putting our logos in, putting our text, our addresses, whatever fields we want to appear on the finished document. And then what RouteOne client will do, it'll perform a mail merge. So what we've done here, we've added the fields on. You see where it's got the double quotes and then the field names in between the curly brackets. Those are the field names that we specified in the RouteOne definition. So at runtime, when it does the mail merge, it will substitute the data from the RouteOne definition into there. To show you what I mean, if I click preview results up here in Word, that will show me the data based on the data source I've just created to create the invoice how we want it to look. If I just come out of that, if I go back into the RouteOne client, this will show me the three requests that we've just run, one for each spool file being converted into a PDF document. And if I go into the BS output folder, book source output, you see the 3 PDFs we've just created there. So what's happened, I've extracted data from the iSeries spool file, downloaded it, sent it down to the PC, done a mail merge, and I've ended up with the invoice in a PDF document as they particularly wanted to look like. Now, we could email that quite easily, either to a fixed email address that we specified in the data request, or more likely, we can either get an email from the spool file itself if the email's on the spool file, or within the RouteOne definition, we can put some logic in there to go and get an email address for some other files by getting the customer number from the invoice, going to another file, perhaps get the email address from another iSeries table. So as well as creating the PDF documents there, they will then be emailed out as well.